Hey everybody, it's Ian the Off Kilter Crafter. I hope you're having a great day today. Did you know that Cotton Cuts offers a try before you buy for the Puzzle Mystery Quilt? That's right, if you've ever wanted to take part in the Puzzle Mystery Quilt, but weren't exactly sure if you were ready for it or up for the task of putting one together, Cotton Cuts gives you the opportunity to give it a try before you purchase a full kit from the Puzzle Mystery Quilt, and it's a really awesome opportunity to try it out and give it a go before committing to that 10-month experience. It's really easy to get your try before you buy kit. All you have to do is go to the Cotton Cuts website, and under the Puzzle Mystery Quilt tab, you'll see a place for the try before you buy. Put in your information and they'll send you a kit free of charge. Now this kit is not a full clue, it gives you a taste, a sample of it, but it doesn't actually get turned into a quilt. You'll have one block that you can use on a project of your choosing, but it's a great way to kind of understand what the Puzzle Mystery Quilt clue entails and how it all works. All right, now that that's all out of the way, let's go ahead and open up our sample clue and put it together. All right, I have my try before you buy clue packet. I have brought over a pressing mat, and I'm going to be using my mini iron today to put this clue together. You will need an area to iron, an iron of some kind. You can use a mini iron or a regular sized iron, completely up to you. But we're going to go ahead and open up the package and take a look at what's included in the try before you buy pack. All right, let's talk about what all is included in the pack that you would get, not only in a regular Puzzle Mystery Quilt clue, but also for this one. You have your fabric guide, and it lists all your fabrics A through F, and that gives you a representation of what the fabric looks like, so that way you know which fabrics end up going where, because when you get your clue instructions, which are these sheets of paper, you'll notice that they are in gray tones. You can see that there are lights and darks, and that's because there's so many different colorways out there. They don't want to print individual papers for each colorway, and also it's a great way to kind of not know exactly what the clue is going to look like until you actually sew it together. So you'll get some instructions that look like this. It will have up in the top right corner what number clue it is. It will tell you which of the Puzzle Mystery Quilts you're working on. It'll show you what the final clue will look like when it's all said and done, and then it also lists out all the different fabrics that are included in your packet. So for example, this is my fabric B, matching it up with my fabric guide, and there are 6 small triangles of fabric B. I have 4 small triangles of fabric A. I have 1 square of fabric D. I have 2 rectangles of fabric B. I also have 1 large triangle of fabric A. And then lastly, I have 2 large triangles of fabric C. Now your kit may look a little different. This is the one that I received, and they may change out the fabrics for different ones as they use up stock or change out clues. So your fabric may look a little different, but it's going to work the same way that I'm doing here. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our step number 1. Remember, as we're sewing these together, that we're going to be using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. That's standard for any sewing that you do on quilts. Usually it's going to be a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to join the small triangles of A and B, and we're going to make 4 squares, and they measure approximately 3.5 inches. So I'm creating 4 half square triangles using my A fabric and my B fabric to make those half square triangles. I'm going to go ahead and sew those, and I'll come back when it's time to press, because there are pressing instructions on these as well. All right, I have sewn all 4 of the squares together. I'm now going to be pressing, because our pressing instructions tell us to press towards the B fabric. I'm going to be pressing towards B, and when pressing half square triangles, I like to press basically half of it upwards, then go back down, and then go the opposite direction and open it up like that. That seems to really help with the warping whenever working with half square triangles. I love that the Cotton Cuts Puzzle Mystery Quilts come already cut, so I don't even have to worry about cutting my shapes. That's already done for me. All I have to do is worry about sewing it together. All right, we have sewn step 1 together. Let's go ahead and move on to step 2. Okay, moving on to step 2, it says to join the squares in pairs. We're going to press towards B, and then we're going to join those pairs together into one shape and press it towards the center seam open. So basically what we're doing is we're creating a pinwheel shape with our fabrics, and as you can see, we're going to put them together just like this first, and we're going to sew straight down in between both of those. Then once we sew both of those rows together, we're going to put them all together into the pinwheel shape that forms just like this. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll come back when it's time to press it out. Okay, I've sewn all my squares together in a pinwheel formation. I'm going to go ahead, and the instructions tell me to press my center seam open, so I'm going to go ahead and do that really quickly. And it should look like a pinwheel whenever we're all said and done with. This is really easy, and I want to talk a moment about the measurements. Whenever you're working on a puzzle mystery quilt, I have not worried too much about the measurements. So if my block doesn't come out exactly the same size as what the measurements say, I know that that's okay, because whenever I put the final quilt together, I've never had a problem with it not going together well, and it always looks great. So even though it does have the measurements listed on the instructions, just like the actual puzzle mystery quilt does, I've never been too freaked out if my block didn't measure the right size, or most of the time I don't even measure at all unless I see something that is way off from where it should be. All right, there we go. There's our pinwheel shape. We have completed step 2. Let's move on to step 3. All right, we're moving on to step 3, and it says to sew a large triangle of fabric C to the right of our second step, of step 2, and we're going to press towards our C fabric, and then we're going to join a second triangle of C to the bottom. So we're creating a basically large triangle here with all of this fabric, and then we're going to gently press towards C, taking care not to stretch the biased edges of the triangle. So our biased edges are going to be very stretchy, so be careful as you're pressing it out. You don't want them to stretch on you. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Remember, we're going to sew this seam first, come back, press that out, and then we'll put the bottom one on and press it out. I'm not going to stop in between each of those. I'll come back when I finish putting on the bottom triangle, but it's the same for both. All right, as you can see, it's flipped around at the moment, but I have gone ahead and pressed my first part of the C fabric, and now I'm pressing my second half of the C fabric away from our block that we've put together. So it looks like that. Again, I'm being as careful as I can to make sure that those biased edges do not stretch. All right, there we go. There is step number 3. It looks like this when we're done. We're going to be setting this off to the side and moving on to step 4. All right, moving on to step 4, it says to join a small triangle of B to the left of a rectangle of B. We're going to be pressing towards our rectangle, and then we're going to be adding a square of D to the right side. So we add this small triangle to the left, the square to the right, and we're going to be pressing towards our D fabric when it's all said and done, at least for the square. So I'm going to go ahead and sew all 3 of these together, and I'll come back when it's time to press it out. All right, as you can see, I have sewn both of those together, so I now have a strip, and remember the pressing instructions say that we are going to be pressing towards the rectangle. So we're pressing our triangle over here towards the rectangle, just like this. And then we're also going to be pressing our rectangle towards our square. So we're going to be pressing, basically keeping everything pressed towards the right when you flip it over backwards. And there we go. It looks like this when we're all said and done. We're going to go ahead and finish pressing this out, and we're going to move on to step number 5. Okay, moving on to step number 5, we've set step 4 off for the moment. We're going to set it off to the side. We're moving on to step 5, which says to join a small triangle of B to the top of a rectangle B. We're going to press towards the triangle once we do that. So we're going to sew those together just like that. And then we're going to add our large triangle of A to the left, and we're going to press towards our B fabric when it's all said and done. So we're going to come up with something that looks like this when we're finished. But remember, we're starting off with a small triangle, excuse me, I almost said rectangle, small triangle to the rectangle, just like that. Press that out, and then we're going to add on our triangle. I'm going to go ahead and do all of that, and I'll come back when it's time to press it out. All right, I have sewn everything together. I did press my rectangle and my triangle. I pressed towards the triangle, and now I've added on the A fabric, and we're going to be pressing. The instructions tell us to press towards our B fabric. So when I look back at my fabric guide, I see that my B fabric has the flowers on it, and I'm going to be pressing towards the flowers, which may get a little wonky, but that is okay. That happens during the Puzzle Mystery Quilt clues all the time, and you just kind of work it out. No big deal. Okay, it looks like this whenever we're said and done. Let's go ahead and move on to step 6. All right, moving on to step 6, it says to join a step 4 to a step 5, and we're going to press towards the bottom. So we're going to put our 2 steps together, step 4 and step 5, and we're going to try and nest our seam right here. That's what I'm going to be looking for. I'm going to flip this over just like this. We're going to put them together just like this, and we're going to press to the bottom when it's all said and done. I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I'll come back when it's time to press it out. Okay, I have finished putting that together. I got close on my seam, didn't get it quite right, but in the Puzzle Mystery Quilt videos that I do, I always talk about putting the top of a quilt together is always better than piecing a perfect quilt. So finished is always better than perfect, at least in my mind. All right, there we go. So we have our finished step 6 that looks like this. Let's go ahead and move on to step 7. All right, this is the final step, step 7. We're going to join the 2 halves of the block together so it forms a square just like this. I'm going to go ahead and sew along this seam. We're going to be very careful because these are biased edges. So we're going to be very careful as we sew this together not to stretch them out, but we should be able to line them up pretty close to each other, and then I'll come back when it's time to press it all out. All right, there we go. We have finished our clue sewing and put those 2 clues together. It says to press towards the bottom right. So I'm going to go ahead and take my iron and press towards the bottom right of the clue that we just sewed together, like so. And there we go. We have our sample clue put together, and it is ready to, I don't know, I might make a pillow out of this, or I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but that is what it looks like when it's all said and done. But I do want to point out, if you look back at our color guide, you'll notice that we had all the fabrics except 2. We didn't have fabric E, and we didn't have fabric F in this one. Remember, whenever you're putting a Puzzle Mystery Quilt clue together, you don't always have all the fabrics in every single clue. So for this one, we used A, B, C, and D, but we didn't have E and F because that wasn't a part of this clue, but it still came out great. And now you have a taste of what a Puzzle Mystery Quilt clue is like. So there you have it. It is so easy to put together a Puzzle Mystery Quilt clue, and you're ready to tackle a Puzzle Mystery Quilt either in the small or the large. Head over to the Cotton Cuts website and see the current colorways available for this current Puzzle Mystery Quilt. I hope everybody has a great day, and remember guys, normal's just a setting on the dryer. Bye!